Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCAA Dynasty here in its inaugural season on College Football Revamped. We've already seen a lot of exciting action over the course of the season already, and we're just roughly, at least in terms of the game, roughly just 1 week into the season somehow, and we still have a lot more football left to go. That's the crazy part in all of this, and we're starting to reach on that halfway point in the season. So definitely some questions that need to be answered, such as who's going to win that Commander-in-Chief's trophy, as we'll see Air Force and Navy actually open things up here in the episode. We also only have one top 25 matchup. Definitely want to see what Central Michigan's all about today. They're 5-0 to start the season. Can they get to 6-0 and really be one of those first teams to get the bowl eligibility? We're going to settle a lot of those questions and so much more later on in this episode. So guys, we're going to have more than a dozen games that are going to be shown here on the channel here tonight. And I hope you guys are excited about all of that and so much more. So if you're excited about week number 6 of the inaugural season of the NCSL, I need you guys to do me a big favor. Make sure you go ahead and smack that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. Let's go ahead and dive right into the action. I'll see you there. So let's go ahead and get week number 6 action officially underway. And we are going to start things out with a battle of the military service academies. Air Force, which does have one of your custom coaches in Coach Dion Kirby. He's the offensive coordinator. He is going to go on the road and take on an undefeated Navy squad who's 3-0, and they are ranked number 17 in the entire country. And right now, Air Force hanging tough with the Naval Academy, as Air Force is going to find their way into the end zone. They have the lead, and a lot at stake here from a rivalry trophies perspective. If Navy does end up winning this game, then they'll be winning the Commanders-in-Chief's trophy, as they do already have a win over the Army Academy earlier in this season. We saw that in a top 25 matchup. Meanwhile, if Air Force wins, they'll play Army later this year, and they might have a chance to win the Commanders-in-Chief's trophy as well. So really a lot to play for between these two teams. You could really show it on the field, as even though Navy might be that superior squad, Navy is carrying a lead officially, as Navy just now getting into the lead here. That's Lorenzo Bell finding the end zone for the midshipmen. So they'll have a 4-point lead, but we will have a studio update though as we check in on Colorado and BYU. Colorado, they got an 8-point lead right now, but we'll jump into the fourth quarter of action. Navy trying to pull away. This is Air Force's chance to try to make this a one-score game, and unfortunately an untimely interception. The only time that Air Force turned the football over all day long. But it will not be enough though, as Navy does remain undefeated. They win 28-17 and win the Commanders-in-Chief's trophy. Meanwhile, we got some 12:30 action here early on. So we got Utah and Arizona State, as well as a battle between Cincinnati and Miami. A little bit of rivalry game action. First, we will go ahead and go out west though, as we'll check in on Utah and Arizona State right now. Both teams who are trying to get to above 500 on the season. They're both 2-2 right now, as the Sun Devils are trying to find the end zone for the first time today, and they almost do so with Matt Lawrence. He fights his way down to the 1-yard line, and we'll see if the Sun Devils, they're going to go with a read option. It looks like it's a broken play, but Tony Johnson able to break a couple of tackles, and he'll find the end zone too. That allows the Sun Devils to briefly even things back up, but Utah able to get that long touchdown play off screen. So Utah is able to retake the lead though. So Utah with 14-7 advantage, as Arizona State looks to try to even things back up once again. Throwing that ball late over to Marcus Guerrero. If that was thrown on time, that could have very well been a touchdown, but still looking at a first and goal situation, which will be topped off by Tony Johnson, who gets a second rushing touchdown of the day. And the Sun Devils do officially tie things up here. Could go in either direction. Still got a very competitive conference matchup right in front of our eyes right now. 4:20 left to play here in the second quarter as Arizona State tried to take the lead meanwhile. But Tony Johnson, he's going to miss out on a few yards. Actually gets sacked in the backfield. Probably should have pitched that ball off, but chose not to do that. Might have been a little bit of an ego thing. Not sure necessarily what's happening with all of that, but 3rd and goal, much more manageable, and they are very good on 3rd and goal. 8 and 11 so far, make it 9 for 12 as Ricky Davis finds his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Sun Devils. And before we get into the rest of the action, we check in on another studio update. This time it's Boise State taking on UNLV, and UNLV having a surprisingly good season. They have the lead against the Broncos. As for the rest of our action here, trying to finish strong here in the end of the first half, and might be in for a little bit of a shootout, except the ball is on the ground. Who recovered that? Looks like it's a Sun Devil that finds his way to recover the fumble. Absolutely insane. So is UNLV really showing out here. Boise State continuing to really be razzle-dazzled by this UNLV Rebels squad, as UNLV now up 23-7 here. So a game that we'll certainly keep in mind moving forward, as Utah, they had a chance to tie that game up, but that fumble in the end zone really did hurt them, and it does look like the Sun Devils, well, they are certainly trying to pull away here. 28-17 in favor of the Sun Devils in the 4th quarter, as Utah trying to rally back and win this football game, and that will certainly help them, as Utah, they have done a real good job running the football today. Over 200 yards on the ground, and still a lot of football left to play, even in the 4th quarter. And they continue to ground and pound with Eric Silva, the fullback of all people, find their way into the end zone. That allows it to be a 1-possession game, but trying to cut down the free. We'll see if Willie Bradford will decide to run for it, and he will be successful with the 2-point conversion. So sure enough, it does remain a 3-point game. A few minutes later, they'll actually try to tie it. They will be successful in tying the game. So we thought Arizona State was going to pull away. We were certainly incorrect on that assumption. And now, less than 3 minutes left, it can swing in either direction. We'll see who wants it more. As Arizona State in the red zone yet again. They could run a lot of clock off if they manage this well enough. Johnson is going to run for a gain of 6 yards. Makes it a manageable 3rd down conversion opportunity. The Sun Devils doing pretty well. 11 for 19. Throwing the ball over the middle of the field and finds Marcus Guerrero into the end zone. Touchdown, Sun Devils. And Arizona State lift the lead. But before we see if Utah can come back, we do get a score from around the country. UNLV is now going to be 4-1 on the season after a 23-7 victory over Boise State. So now we'll see if Utah has what it takes to come back and win this football game, as Bradford's going to throw to the left-hand side. This could go for a big gain down the sideline. 1 tackle broken. Finally going to be wrestled down inside the 20-yard line. And Utah's got some life all of a sudden. They pitch it out onto the perimeter. Touchdown, Jeremy Steffens. And now it's a tie ball game here in Sun Devil Stadium. And we are actually going to go into overtime. So regulation was simply not enough. So here we go. First overtime period. Arizona State, they start with the football. They'll run the ball over the middle of the field. Lee Evans punches it into the end zone. So now Utah, they got to score a touchdown. Otherwise, this game is going to be over. 1st and 10. So the first play of the overtime period. Bradford looks over the middle, and it's going to be intercepted. Utah turning the ball over quite a few times in this game. A lot of turnovers there for Utah. And that was the ultimate dagger as Arizona State walks away. And they do so as a winner. So let's see if this other game here that happened in 12:30 spot, can that also live up to the billing? We got Cincinnati taking on Miami of Ohio as the Red Hawks seek to get off to a 3-1 start, while Cincinnati, they're still looking for their first win of the season. They have kind of fell from grace a little bit. And the way that the conferences are set up, you would think that Cincinnati would be one of the better teams in the Buckeye division. Only team that has more resources poured into their football program in this particular division is Ohio State. So very surprising to see Cincinnati in the slow start that they are having right now. But Miami, they do have a 7-3 lead in this critical rivalry game right now, as it looks like Nick Cutler, he's going to do a little bit of dancing in the backfield before finding a small crease to run his way into the end zone. No, but we get another studio update though on the Colorado BYU game. Colorado does retake the lead. It's very close in that third quarter, as the Buffaloes are also trying to get off to a great start. They're also undefeated on the season. But coming back to our game though, Cincinnati down by 11. They will kick a field goal through. Very low scoring game there. Definitely different from the Arizona State and Utah game that we just saw earlier. But less than 2 minutes left to go. Cincinnati, they get an interception down the sideline, dragging an offensive lineman too. That's actually the first turnover that we've seen in this game, and Kenny Long read him like a novel. Unfortunately, Cincinnati cannot go down the length of the field, so they go to that dreaded 0-5 start. As now we jump into the 1 p.m. kickoff games, and definitely some teams to watch out for. Washington, Nebraska, and how about an undefeated Central Michigan squad? They're 5-0 coming into this game. First time that we've seen them on national television, though. They'll be taking on the Oklahoma Sooners in a non-conference game, obviously. And, right now it seems like Central Michigan, definitely some questions being raised about them with how things are going for them early on. Is Central Michigan actually a good squad, or did they happen to have a little bit weaker of an early schedule, and now that they're on national TV, they get exposed a little bit. They are getting exposed quite a bit here, as Bill Ferwerda trying to lead a 2-minute drive here to end the half, and this might do it. Mike Nolan getting the Sooners inside the 5-yard line. And Oklahoma still has a timeout to work with as well, as they'll run the ball to the outside. And that is Kevin Corbett. He's going to find his way into the end zone off the little toss play over on the left-hand side. So the Sooners, well, they build themselves up to a little 10-point lead. Or at least that's what I thought, except they actually did miss the extra point, so you hate to see that. So Central Michigan actually does have a chance to cut this to a one-score game before going to the halftime locker room, but unfortunately, that pass does end up being intercepted by Ross Johnson. That is one of the linebackers. So Oklahoma, they will retain a 2-possession lead, up by 9 points. A little bit more of a defensive game as well, but we'll see if things heat up a little bit here in the second half, though, as they'll face a 3rd and 7. For Werner, though, able to find Charles Murray. A nice little check down there, able to pick up the first down, as it will set up a goal line opportunity. Trying to set up the screen. It looks like it's going to be a lot of space out in the open field. And Kevin Corbett finds the end zone for the second time today, finding it through the air. And they will choose to go for 2, but Bill Ferwerda cannot squeeze it through in there. So the 2-point conversion attempt is not successful. But the Chippewas are down by 2 scores as they look to desperately get back into this game. They got to get into the end zone on this possession, and it will be a goal line opportunity. Got to go quickly, though, less than 2 minutes. Speed option over to the left-hand side. It's going to be one of the Heisman front runners in A.J. Mitchell. He'll find the end zone for the Chippewas, as A.J. Mitchell does set a career record for most rushing yards in school history. However, the Chippewas, they decide to go for 2, and they go away from A.J. Mitchell as well. So a very head-scratching decision. They didn't need to do that to make that 1-score game. But that being said, we do get confirmation from the Colorado BYU game. They're able to win that, and then not only does UNLV win their game, but Texas A&M, they do narrowly win over Tulsa as well on top of that. But it does look like Central Michigan, they're going to lose their first game of the season, 22-13, as Oklahoma does get back to 500. Now, that being said, Washington is going to go on the road to take on West Virginia, playing that country roads. And they're going to need them country roads to show out if they want to pull the upset on the number 8 team in the nation. And you want to talk about a team that might be the most disappointing. West Virginia might fit that bill. Preseason top 25 team. Here they are at 1-3. And now we're talking about possibly seeing them get ran off the field. I would really not be shocked if I saw that happen here, as Washington does get off to an extremely strong start here. They'll take a 17-0 lead. But in the waning moments of this first half, though, West Virginia, they get a little bit of a drive going themselves, and they'll finally find the end zone with less than 30 seconds left to play in the first half of action. And Reggie Woods, well, he gets his first touchdown of the day. Meanwhile, in the second half, looks like West Virginia's defense is starting to really find a groove, starting to fly around to the ball, and at least making it harder for the Washington Huskies to score. Top 10 squad, as Joe McDaniel is going to load up towards the end zone, but that is going to be missed. That will be picked off, but even with those defensive plays, still going to see Washington really move the ball up and down this field. Brandon Turner will also get a touchdown reception as well, and it allows the Huskies to run away. They end up putting a 50-burger on West Virginia, really showing the difference between these two squads. And of course, we got Nebraska on the road taking on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who are not ranked, but they are getting some top 25 consideration, though. 4-1 is not a record to laugh at. We'll see how legitimate this Minnesota squad is, though, as a win against Nebraska would be very, very helpful. 3rd and goal coming up, though, as the Gophers are looking for the end zone for the first time today, and they will, as Louis Harrison, well, he finds the end zone all by himself. Now just a 6-point game. Nebraska looking to answer back. They got a nice little option play over the left-hand side. One person left to beat, and he's pushed out the 1-yard line. That could be big, because he got a 3rd and goal opportunity. Minnesota trying to stand tall, but CJ McIntyre found a little bit too much space there. So now it's a 20-7 game as they look to capitalize on the momentum. 30 seconds left. Fires. Finds Brian Montoya in the back of the end zone. And 27-7 is your score going into halftime. Meanwhile, in the 3rd quarter, Nebraska continued to really pound and ground this Minnesota squad. And the big compliment of being able to go ahead and really run out the ball the way that they were running the football, they are an option team, is that they can really take the crowd out of this game, and it looks like they're doing that right now with 27-7 lead and with the way they've been running the football. But they can pass through the air as well, especially when they need to. In Nebraska, they're going to be able to come out here, win 34-28. Minnesota, they get some points, but it was in garbage time. Now, that being said, we get into a little bit later in the day as we get check-ins on some top 25 teams such as LSU, Alabama, and the University of California. Speaking of that Cal squad, we'll check in on them first specifically, as they are going to be hosting Georgia Tech. And this Georgia Tech squad, they can play some teams tough. They played LSU early in the season, played them hard on a neutral site back in week number 1, but this Cal team might actually be legitimate, though. I had some concerns about them as they barely beat an FCS squad back in, I believe it was either week number 1 or week number 2, but still undefeated. They have not lost a single game yet, and if they can win here, they will already secure some bowl eligibility already with that 10-0 lead. So punching it into the end zone here, that would be critical. As it's 2nd and goal now. Going to run it up the middle with Billy Pugh. And Pugh is going to find his way into the end zone. That is a touchdown for the California Bears. Now making it 17-0 before Georgia Tech, they finally get in on the scoreboard. They will get rid of that goose egg with 2:56 left to play in that first half of action. But Cal will respond with a field goal of their own. They'll knock that field goal right through the uprights, as that will indeed make it a 20-3 lead into the halftime locker room. Now, in the second half, we'll see if Cal can continue their strong play that they got going on as they kick yet another field goal through the uprights. That makes it 23-3. But here comes Georgia Tech, looking to rally back as quickly as possible. Going to run a little bit of an option, pitches it out, breaks one tackle, and does not keep himself in bounds. But nearly picks up the first down, though. Makes it 3rd and short, as Georgia Tech looks to make this a one-score game. And they will, with Robert Smith. A game that could get very interesting. Does Georgia Tech have what it takes to pull the upset off? They gotta force a turnover so that they can keep themselves in this ball game. But Billy Pugh, he does not want to be denied of yet another victory. He's trying to go bowling. Well, not only bowling, but he wants that national championship. And the way the Cal's been playing early in the season, they might be capable of doing just that. They have a team that's more than capable of getting that job done. 30-17 now being your score, except they go for 2 here, and they get the 2-point conversion. So that helps build their lead even further, as the California Bears looking to put this game away. This pass might do it. Oh, cannot get into the end zone. Dane Ward was very close to doing that, though. It will be 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. Everyone thinks Billy Pugh's going to get it. They pass instead, and Josh Joseph gets the touchdown in the back of the end zone instead. So the California Bears, needless to say, they will remain undefeated for now. 6-0 makes it a 38-17 win. Meanwhile, for LSU, they're going to take on one of the 2 independent teams that we have in this NCSL. UO Monroe, just a lot of teams out there in the southeastern part of the country. And UO Monroe, well, they did get a little bit of short end of the stick in that regard, right? So LSU, they are taking on the Warhawks of UO Monroe. Solid record, but this would, of course, be their very biggest test of the season, as LSU was at one point ranked number 1 in the entire country, as Anthony Williams will get the scoring started, as he does find Damian Morton with that nice dot in the back of the end zone. One of the few teams in the country, by the way, that has like that double upright with the 2 posts instead of just 1 standard post. You don't really see that very often, but that's just what makes Death Valley at LSU a little bit special. And when LSU is good, this place is almost impossible to play in. And UO Monroe, they are finding it out the hard way, as Sean Thomas, he's going to take that the other way, as the Tigers of LSU take a 21-7 lead. Could have made this a much bigger lead, though, but Anthony Williams really wanted that slant pattern. It was covered. It was completely covered. So UO Monroe at least able to force a turnover, but if the Warhawk offense cannot get itself going, it could be a very long second half for this UO Monroe squad. Already down by 17. Williams is going to make that 24-point lead, as Damian Morton found in the back of the end zone yet again. So 31-7 now your score, as LSU gets yet another interception. It's not like the Warhawks, they moved the ball at times. They really did, but, they just couldn't capitalize on the opportunities when it was bestowed upon them, as Anthony Williams will run it up the gut. He'll get it inside the 10-yard line. So another 1st and goal opportunity for the LSU Tigers, as Williams is going to go ahead and run it on the outside. He's got some space on the perimeter, and Chris Norman, he'll get a nice little 7-yard rush, as LSU looks to punch it in yet again. Williams drops back, looks over the middle, finds Damian Morton again, a hat trick for this receiver as the LSU Tigers win by 30 plus against UO Monroe. Anthony Williams does get named player of the game. However, the Alabama Crimson Tide, we talked about how could this be an end of an era. They got blown out last week by Ole Miss. They took them to the woodshed, and that was a game that, yeah, they were on the road for, but like if you're Alabama, you cannot get blown out by 40 points. That's just not who you are. So this game against Southern Miss, it's really going to test really their mental fortitude. How tough are they mentally? Because Southern Miss may not be ranked, but they're a good little football team, 3-1. Really shouldn't be messing with them necessarily. This is Southern Miss's time to really shine. This is only their second nationally televised game of the season so far. Alabama's going to run it with Curtis West here. He's going to pitch it out onto the perimeter. He's got one man out in the open and nearly picks up the first down there as Curtis West will actually call that a pass. I don't know why the Southern Miss defense is celebrating since you just gave up a 16-yard gain. It's weird out here, man. It really is out here. Kind of weird. It's just kind of like when those DBs, they celebrate the incompletion even though the ball was overthrown by 10 plus yards. Like, you did not cause the incompletion, my brother in Christ, right? So that being said, Alabama, they are still driving down the length of the field and in a pretty good scoring position. They drive their way inside the 5-yard line, and Curtis West looking for a touchdown. He will be provided one as James Robinson will finally find the end zone for Alabama. That would be the only points that Alabama would score in the first half. They would actually miss the extra point as well. You hate to see it, but Alabama will finally take their first lead of the ball game here in the third quarter. Able to make it 9-7. Yeah, Southern Miss really hasn't done anything with their offense as well. But a pair of field goals will make this a 5-point lead. But Alabama's offense, you got to wake up a little bit. Both offenses really need to wake up. We'll see if that happens here in this fourth quarter of action. But Josh Maxwell, he gets absolutely ran over by Reggie Ashley, who gets a second TFL of the ball game. Forces a 3rd and 11, and West just has just enough time, tries to throw it over the middle of the field. Well, he's going to be intercepted. So Southern Miss still in this football game as Maurice Buckley able to get the turnover, but cannot capitalize. So another Alabama position comes, and Southern Miss does not add any points onto the scoreboard. But how about Curtis West there, able to keep his eyes downfield long enough to find James Robinson? Not the best pass in the world, but it did get to his receiver and does ultimately set up yet another touchdown run as Josh Maxwell, he takes a few of those guys down on the ground with him. He ran extremely hard there. Alabama does win, but there is still questions about this team as they only win by 12 points against Southern Miss. As for the later games, got some good games around the country. How about Arkansas State? Ranked number 20 in the country. We'll have to see how they do against Auburn here. But before we go into all of that, we are going to check in on Wisconsin taking on the Texas Longhorns. A nice little nationally televised game here. Two teams that are off to slower starts. They're going to be looking to try to go ahead and get back to 500. We'll see who would be successful in doing that. But one thing is clear, Wisconsin looking like a team that does have that capability of finding the end zone first here. Late in the first quarter of action, we'll see how Wisconsin attacks this first and goal opportunity. They're just going to run it up the middle, not trying to be too cute about it. And Greg Cutler will find the end zone on a 6-yard scamper. So now the Badgers have a 7-0 lead. Can Adam Allen answer back? And I don't even know what Adam Allen was looking at there because there was not a lot going on over there. It was just a rough game for Adam Allen, who threw 2 interceptions. Non-game, like 2 interceptions in a game is not good. But 2 interceptions in the first quarter, well, that's a lot worse, man. So Texas, they do have the ball deep in Wisconsin territory with less than a minute left, and they will go into their no-huddle offense quickly. Fires in the back of the end zone, though, and that will be a touchdown for the Longhorns. finally getting it back to a one-score game. Very little scoring in this game, but Texas will finally take the lead here halfway through the third quarter, as long as they make the extra point, which they do because extra points, they are not a given in NCAA, at least if you're simming it. If you're a user playing and you're missing extra points, there might be a bigger issue than what the game is doing though. But Texas looks like they are poised to go to 2-2 unless Wisconsin, can they battle back? 8:08 left to play in the fourth quarter. This tight end wants the first down, and Ronald Huston, he almost gets it. He almost gets that first down. Will be marked just shy though. Will be a third and manageable, which they're just going to run the football with Greg Cutler. And Greg Cutler does get the first down and inside the 5-yard line too. So that will also make it a very good goal line opportunity. Only need a few yards and got a few plays to do it too. Only will need one of those plays as Ronald Huston is found in the back of the end zone. But can they get that 2-point conversion though? This would make it all knotted up at 21 apiece, but Texas will deny them. So Wisconsin does score with a touchdown, but they do not manage to tie the game up. And after a Texas field goal, Wisconsin, they got to find a way to find that end zone yet again. Can they do it 2 times in a row? Second and goal coming up. Couple plays later. Douglas dropping back the pass. Gonna hand the ball off to Chris Webber. That is the backup running back who finds his way into the end zone. And now the Badgers have the lead. Now seeking a 2-point conversion, which their quarterback converts. They can no longer lose on a field goal. Can Texas drive down the length of the field? 2 minutes left to play in this football game. Does Texas have what it takes to win this game? Walter Sims gets his start, gets a nice little first down. Longhorns will be going into their no-huddle offense. They want to preserve those timeouts just in case they cannot convert. Allen looks over the middle of the field yet again. This time it's the running back, Trey Dixon, out of the backfield. A 15-yard gain on the play. They will use a couple of their timeouts before they run to a pivotal 4th and 2, and it's intercepted. It's over. Wisconsin is going to win the football game. A very, very sloppy game between these two teams. There ended up being 9 turnovers in this game, but Wisconsin makes the big plays when it matters the most. And this stadium is absolutely stunned. They have no idea what's going on right now. And it looks like we'll see Texas lose. Tennessee will also win their second game of the season. Just checking out that studio update real quick. But Texas, they will lose a heartbreaker to Wisconsin. But now let's check in on Maryland taking on the Florida State Seminoles in a old ACC matchup. Is considered a non-conference matchup nowadays, though, as Florida State Seminoles, they got that 10-0 lead early. How about Luis Barrett throwing down a nasty stiff arm, though? Gives Florida State a strong start to this game, 17-0. But we do get a quick studio update, though. How about San Jose State, though? They're also making a name for themselves, too. They're now 4-2 on the season. But checking back in on our game, though, Maryland does finally get on the board. 17-3 being your score, as the Seminoles, they're going to look to try to finish this game strong. No scoring in the third quarter. Really seen both offenses slow down very significantly since we jump into the second half of action. But Luis Barrett, we're going to try to provide the finishing move as Barrett trying to dance around the pocket. He's going to slide down. Almost got into the end zone, but it's going to be just a few yards short. It's going to end up being 3rd and goal. Can the Seminoles punch it in? And it looks like they will. Ryan Jones finds his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Seminoles. And Florida State will walk away with a nice victory over Maryland at home. They will be going to the meat of conference play with a 3-2 record after winning by 24. Now, that being said, though, we got Arkansas State, number 20 in the entire country. Actually, their only loss is to their in-state opponent, Arkansas. But we got Auburn in here as well. They're undefeated on the season. Ranked number 10 in the nation. They took down a former number 1 in LSU as well. As you're seeing the conference standings, both Auburn and Arkansas State, they are very competitive in their respective divisions in both the Bayou and the Dixie division right now. But gonna see not a lot of scoring in this game at all. We only actually see like a couple of highlight worthy plays, but I mean, I had to show this game though. It's a top 25 matchup. Still 7-0. Nobody really coming out here and lighting the world on fire necessarily on offense, but good thing that Arkansas State defense, it was on point today. They played very well against Arkansas as well, but finally they pitched a shutout and they're going to take down a top 10 team on the road as well. You love to see it. So now we jump into South Carolina going on the road in order to take on the Georgia Bulldogs. Both teams are 3-1. Very critical non-conference game. South Carolina over in the new look ACC that has a lot of teams in the Carolinas, North and South Carolina for sure. South Carolina actually does take an early lead. They take an early 3-0 lead, but Georgia, this quarterback is on a mission, and Andre Bryant, well, he is simply not. He's not going to be denied here, ladies and gentlemen. He finds the end zone. 7-6 is your score. But South Carolina looking to take the lead here in the closing moments of the first half. Dragon defenders Thomas Logan going to get a 17-yard carry. That's his biggest rush of the day so far. As South Carolina on the verge of field goal range. 3rd and 12, loading up down the right-hand side. And how about the 10 toes down movement in full effect? Trying to find the end zone. 3rd and goal, looking for the lead. They got it! Randy Thomas in the back of the end zone in South Carolina. They have the lead against the number 15 team in the entire country. And this game could easily go either way. And you know what they say, the longer you keep these underdogs in the game, the longer they have that belief. And we're seeing that unfold live in person right now. Georgia could be in some serious trouble right now. Would be great to see them find their way into the end zone or at least get points on the board. But again, Andre Bryant finds the end zone on the ground for the second time today. And they will elect to go for the 2-point conversion as well. This will make it a 6-point game, and that was very easy to convert, or at least they did make it look easy. And from that point on, Georgia will end up, for the most part, dominating this game. They stretch it out to a 2-possession lead, and South Carolina does even get a turnover, but it was all Georgia in that last quarter and a half. And Georgia will pull away. They win 33-16, courtesy of a very strong second half there, as the Bulldogs are now 4-1. As for the remaining games that we have, definitely some interesting ones of intrigue. USC and Penn State, they both got to go on the road. But how about this Rutgers team that Penn State's got to go up against? Number 2 in the country. Rutgers is no slouch, though. Rutgers still undefeated, but yet no national attention. This will be the first time all season long that we would actually see Rutgers on national television. But before we check out the rest of the game, Clemson barely escapes, and so does Texas Tech. So these upsets, they can happen. Several teams have been very close to pulling upsets here today. Those are just 2 examples of that, obviously. Penn State on the ropes here too. Here late in the second half, still just a 1-score game. Could still very well realistically see Rutgers win this game, since they do have that home field crowd behind them. But Patrick McCoy is going to try to say something about that. He's going to be the fullback that is going to be untouched. You rarely see a fullback not only get into the end zone, but get into the end zone untouched, because they just run straight when they run the football. They are absolutely wrecking balls in the backfield. And even though you don't really see the fullback utilized very often anymore, but Penn State trying to close this game out. Still very tight at the moment. Just a 1-score game between these 2 squads. Rutgers, if they can move down the length of this field, and they have for the most part, they can tie this game. And let's see if Rutgers can do just that. And sure enough, Rutgers has a chance to tie against the number 2 team in the entire country. It's going to come down to a 2-point conversion. Can Rutgers convert? What do they call? A pass play. McIntyre trying to scramble, but is going to be swarmed by the Nittany Lion defense. And Jonathan McIntyre cannot convert the 2-point conversion. And that absolutely was the difference as Penn State against East Rutherford. They are still undefeated. But two teams that are not undefeated, though, is Iowa and Kansas. Both teams who are 1-3 thus far in the season. We do get an individual studio update from Clemson. We did see this breakdown. Could have really gone either way, and that's in spite of Hansen not really having a good performance. He was only 9 for 26 on the ball game, right? So that's something to really think about. But Iowa, they're down 7-3 here early against the Kansas Jayhawks. Going to look over to that right-hand side as Ben Robinson will make the catch inbounds. That will be his first catch of the night as Kansas looks to take the lead for the first time today. And Gabe Curry, he will find his way into the end zone. Kinnick Stadium is going to erupt in approval. And it does look like Kansas, they might run away with this game. The way that they finished this second quarter off, remember, they were down 7-3 at one point, but then rattled off 21 unanswered points before the end of the half. But there's 4 quarters of football, though. Just because you happen to open up with a pretty big lead doesn't mean that you're going to finish the game off. And that certainly was a case here. After Iowa scores 21 unanswered points in the second half, Kansas will go for, and they managed to score 24 unanswered points in the second half, and Kansas storms back and wins in Kinnick Stadium. So one of the last games that we have of the day is USC. They are taking on the Nevada Wolfpack, both teams part of that new look specific conference. And USC gets off to a good start here. First drive of the game, they will find the end zone. And USC, at least offensively, looks like one of the best offensive units in the entire country. Although, that goes to show that sometimes mistakes are made as well. They are certainly not perfect, but even with that turnover, USC does rattle off 21 points in the first quarter. That's always a really impressive thing to do. They could make this a 28-3 lead, and they're not the Falcons either. They could be the ones that could open up a really massive lead. 28-3 is a real possibility now. We'll see if they go back to Nick Richards for this second and goal opportunity, and they do actually. Richards will find the end zone yet again, and this was never really a contest. USC, they pull away from Nevada quickly and win 55-27, doing what they're supposed to do. But now let's go ahead and take the time to take a look around the country to see what other scores unfolded during our nationally televised game. And of note, first and foremost, we have Memphis, who blows out Texas State. And this is the second week in a row that the Texas State Bobcats did end up getting blown out. Memphis does get back to 500 on the season with this win. As for Notre Dame, they finally found their offense. Even though they do have a good record, it's good to see that offense coming in full steam. They blow out Western Kentucky as well, 47-17, to move up to number 13 in the entire country. As for Missouri, they remain in the top 25 for now, thanks to a 38-14 win over the Western Michigan Broncos. The Missouri Tigers are now 3-2 on the year. As for San Diego State, they send a message to Stanford that they're not to be messed with either, as the Aztecs blow out Stanford 42-0 to get to 3-2 on the season themselves. As for the Oregon Ducks, they will be bowl eligible now officially, as they do end up being Hawaiiing 31-10 in conference play. They're now sitting at 6-0 with a number 5 national ranking for the Oregon Ducks. As for the Arkansas Razorbacks, they blow out the University of Louisiana Lafayette as Arkansas wins 52-23. The Ragin' Cajuns start off 3-0, but they are currently on a 3-game losing streak now. Now, that being said, Texas Tech did indeed have a really close call. They would have fallen out of the top 25 if they lost this game. However, they do score 13 unanswered points in the fourth quarter as the Red Raiders win 27-26. They're now 4-1 on the year. Michigan also handles its business as they remain undefeated on the season. This time they beat the Toledo Rockets out of the Buckeye division. 49-20 is their final score. Toledo will be falling to 1-3. Speaking of that conference though, we do have a blowout in the Midwest as Michigan State takes down Ohio 38-6, and the Michigan State Spartans now are 3-1 on the year. And of course, we have the Ole Miss Rebels, who are flying high after their big win against Alabama last week. Well, they did not take anything for granted today as they handled their business against the South Alabama Jaguars 28-14. Ole Miss is now 5-1 on the season. But with nobody jumping in or out of the top 25, we'll now jump right into the Heisman Trophy conversation. And what we got going on for the Heisman Trophy conversation is we do have a new front runner once again. Billy Pugh is that guy for the California Bears. He's been leading them to a great season and really a breakout performance for him as he had over 300 yards of total offense. In other moves, Will Flores moves down a little bit after just throwing 6 pass attempts in the game, so maybe he got hurt over the course of the ball game. AJ Mitchell also moves down a spot, even though he did have over 100 yards rushing. But that Central Michigan team, we did see them on national television for the first time this season, and honestly, they did get exposed a little bit. Brian Henry, meanwhile, moves up to number 4 after a gritty road victory against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. That Rutgers team was undefeated. And hanging in there as well is DeMarcus Underwood, who had a pedestrian day with 72 yards on the ground, 12 receiving yards as well, but still helped his team beat Southern Alabama. And finally, we go into the NCSL Players of the Week. And on the defensive side of the ball, Brandon Barnes, well, he was certified him in this game. He was flying all over the field for the Wisconsin defense as he ended up with 7 tackles, a forced fumble, and an interception in what was a tightly contested game against the Texas Longhorns on national television. But that is not even the most shocking thing that I see on this screen. Robert Richardson, the senior redshirt out of Northern Illinois, 29 catches. I am not making this up. 29 catches, 451 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So this is the second time that we've seen an absolutely insane stat line. So that's actually one of the custom coaches. That's Hammock Jr., who's a coordinator at the University of Northern Illinois. So we'll check his stats real quick on this screen to see if that's actually accurate or not. And sure enough, it actually is. Only 2 other receivers got the ball, but Richardson, he was the entire passing offense in this game. In Louisville, well, they just simply didn't have an answer. So an electric week of football once again that just heats up even more as we get to that halfway point in the inaugural season of the NCSL Dynasty here on College Football Revamp. So what that means is that next episode we'll have our typical assortment of nationally televised games, but not only that, what we will also end up seeing as well, we'll have our first conference standings update of the season, keep you guys up to date on terms of these conference championship races. How are the conference championships starting to shape up? What are we looking at on that front? So we'll have that, we'll have the nationally televised game, and much more in the next episode. But I hope you enjoyed today's content, and if you did, make sure you go ahead and smack that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button if you happen to be brand new to the channel as well. If you're a college football fan, if you like sports video games myself, this is that channel for you. But with that being said, this is John J. Gaming on the mic signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.